Australians invade Montreal and kill Brazilians? Hadouken! How can you become a pro gamer? And the girls got game? All this and more. Screenplay League. This week on Screenplay League, we've got a little bit of Rainbow Six Invitational news, we've got some Street Fighter V and Gfinity Challenger Series related news, Overwatch Contenders coming your way, and we've even got a little bit of a nugget about those pro gaming girls all over the world. But I won't be doing this conversation alone. Joining me, esports commentator, co-owner of Darksided, and good old buddy of mine, it is Rogi.
Thank you, Miles. Great to be here, man.
Dude, thank you very much for joining me. Rogi, we have a bit of a history. We've commentated Overwatch together in the past. We're part of that weird little incestuous, creepy commentator professional circle, which is very real, I can assure you. But yeah, dude, so tell us a bit about yourself. Now you're a Gears caster?
Yeah, so started casting in a various of games that really found my mark in Gears of War. One of the most fun and exciting games I've had the pleasure of doing. And Miles, we've done a few games together, but never Gears of War. You should give it a go one day.
I know.
The blood and guts too much?
Just no, man. I think I'm too soft for Gears. On with the news. We've got a ton to cover. This weekend, the Rainbow Six Invitational took place in Montreal. $500,000 up for grabs. The top 16 teams from around the globe, including some very popular homeboy favorites, Mindfreak. They had the upset of the weekend over Team Liquid. Really, what happened?
Look, without a doubt, really showing an immaculate performance on the world stage, taking out Team Liquid, one of the heavy favorites. And with a name like Team Liquid, you know that that is like esports pedigree, essentially. So you know they're boasting a killer lineup. And unfortunately for Team Liquid, Mindfreak came out with the goods and beat them in the rounds.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Mindfreak and I think Australia as a whole, they're basically the given underdogs in almost any game, in any situation. Yeah, apart from cricket and sometimes rugby and traditional sports. But yeah, usually, especially on the digital playing field, there's no one who ever counts the Australians as like a top contender, and that's why these upsets tend to happen. So yeah, it was a stunning victory for the boys of Team Mindfreak. And take a quick look at this clip. Watch for the pop-off.
Is going to take out Nesk. Will there be a refrag from Bullet? No,
and Rizraz a second.
Two for Rizraz. He has control over the back hallway.
And only 40 seconds. It's Yuke and Zig. Zig has lost a lot of health. He will challenge on the mirror. Lusty takes him down. It's all up to Yuke. He's coming in to push, but inside a cafeteria sees Rizraz. Rizraz gets it. The Aussies do it, and APAC will make it to the quarterfinals.
So let's face it, Magnet has a career as a hype man in pretty much any field he chooses after a clip like that. Max, let's talk a little bit about the fact that Australia is never quite the kind of the premier esports nation in the world. I mean, is it our internet? Is it the low population? What, in your opinion, is holding us back?
Dude, I think it's a culmination of like all those factors compressed into one, and quite frankly, it sucks, right? We have a lot of great talent, great attitudes, and the paths are just not as clearly laid out as in other scenes where they've had that infrastructure. They've really had the drive for so long, but we're seeing that more and more being evolved in our scene, which is really great.
I mean, like, for me, when I think of esports, it's always like Korea. Korea's got the most blisteringly fast internet on the face of the planet, and a culture that kind of cultivates and encourages people to sit in and play games all the time. Maybe the fact that Australia's such a nice country to be outdoors in doesn't help, but regardless of that, you know, it's not quite there. We're still getting a lot of, you know, shifty articles in the news about like how video game violence is, you know, causing children to do all sorts of terrible things and whatnot. And I really, you know, those things we can do without those, frankly. You know, when you think of a couple of players who have made an impact and have managed to get onto the global scale, Custer, who is an Overwatch player for the Dallas Fuel,
huge.
Like he made it out there. He played for Fnatic before that. Again, another massive gaming team. He has managed to break out, but that's like individual levels. You know, an Uber, Mitch Leslie, he's an Overwatch League commentator as well. He managed to make it out over there, and it seems the only way right now for players or commentators, personalities to make an impact, even streamers, is to go overseas. And I feel like we're changing slowly but surely, that we're getting there. Again, all these infrastructure changes make a big difference. Yeah. But again, it feels like to actually make an impact, you've got to leave this beautiful, sunny, murderous rock.
Well, it doesn't help that we're on the other side of the planet, basically isolated all the way so far from these major kind of esporting realms. And yeah, like we do see a lot of people kind of breaking the mold and going out there and taking a chance. I know, and here's a song kind of go off topic. We saw two players actually move over to Europe to undertake that full time, and they've had various levels of success in there. And I don't think that's the best thing to do, because I really think that people should be sticking it out and seeing to growing the scene instead of just abandoning it for their own personal gain, but to each their own.
Yeah, but it's true. It's kind of like moving to Hollywood if you're an aspiring actress or whatever. So let's talk a little bit about the Gfinity Challenger Series, in particular Street Fighter. Now, Max, you and Team Darkside, of course. You guys, you've got a couple of players in the Street Fighter League right now. How's that going?
Yeah, going really well. I think Somniac's is head and shoulders above the rest of the competition. I think second place is like half his score right now. So he's been doing a lot of work in that scene. But, you know, he's already a very established player and everyone kind of knew. But it's giving a lot of new players as well opportunities to get up there. You see a lot of names in the top 20s you may not see perform that well at LAN, but it's just going to show that commitment, that energy, and that drive really shining through. And you've got to thank Gfinity for putting on these series.
This is a really cool way of doing that. You said there's a ladder. Yeah. You've got guys on that ladder who you would have never come across before. And as an org owner, if you're looking for like the next big talent, do you go to those ladders and you have a peep of those dudes?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, if you weren't in the Street Fighter scene, or fighting game community, should I say, you really don't have, you can't form your own opinion unless you do the research, take the time, get informed opinions from other kind of figureheads of the community. But now you have a pretty straightforward graph that's like, this guy's the best, this guy's second best, this guy down here not so great.
How pissed are you when you back a horse who you thought was great, you know, online, and then he rocks up at the event, and his hands are shaking, he's all sweaty, and he just shits the bed entirely? Like, does that piss you off?
Well, that's kind of the thing with fighting games, right? Like, every frame matters. We kind of spoke a little bit before about Australian internet and how it's still lacking severely in this country. And when you're trying to play these series online, yeah, we're going to see how these guys cope at LAN, because that's a real decider.
So we talked a little bit about the path to becoming a pro gamer. Well, now, thanks to the lovely people at Blizzard, they have literally given you the exact means to do so. The Overwatch Contenders has been announced here in the Australian APAC region. And my goodness, that's pretty cool news, man. It's pretty damn good news if you ask me. This is literally a path to pro. I mean, you go from the open division straight into the contenders, and that is literally how you're going to be able to find yourself next year, in the coming years, into that Overwatch League.
I mean, yeah, we spoke about how that path has always been notoriously murky for an Australian player living in this ecosystem, but it's so good to have that kind of clear-cut definitions. This is what you have to do. These are the steps that you have to undertake. These are the boxes you have to check, and these are the teams you have to impress. But essentially, that's the whole purpose of Contenders, right? You want to impress the big dogs over in the Overwatch League to get scouted.
Yeah, getting scouted, man. I've seen a lot of players from Team Australia from this year's World Cup actually putting out tweets saying, I'm looking for a team, I'm looking for a place in an Overwatch League team, I'm looking for a team, a Contenders team even.
Yeah.
So when you look at the top 8 teams who have been invited into Contenders, and these are the guys who made it through the Open Division. So again, place to the Open Division, you get top 8 there, you make your way into Contenders. Contenders is an entirely separate tournament that is going to be starting on March 11th.
Yeah.
There will be a stream. It will all be streamed and broadcast online for your viewing pleasure. But it's going to be cool to see those teams making their way through what has been quite a gauntlet already, and you get into that place. I'm pretty sure the roster locks already happened. Like, I know your guys, you're in the top 8. You've made it. How do you feel?
I feel great. The guys are super excited, and yeah, there is a little bit of turbulence when it comes to this era, because there were probably a ton of great players who maybe didn't make that top 8 and are now like, hey, we're available to pick up. And of course, you know, roster mania can happen anytime, anywhere. And I'm not really sure if roster locks have been put in place yet, but I imagine that's just around the corner with what? It's starting 11 March?
11th of March, yes. It's happening really, really soon. I mean, this is, for me, is such an important thing for esports in general in the region, because again, it's a concrete path. It's like, literally, if you start in the open and you play the best you can, you make it into the Contenders division, and then all of a sudden there's money being earned on a weekly basis in these tournaments.
Yeah.
That's when you're starting to make a living out of this, or at least showing mum and dad, because let's face it, they're the most important people to impress when it comes to esports. They'll kill you, I can assure you. As soon as you get mum and dad on board, that is when life changes and you start getting the support you need. Did you need to buy that $200 keyboard so that you could become the quickest, you know, WASD homeboy in town? That is how you get it done, dude. Unless you're winning tournaments, you're begging your parents for this sort of stuff. How are your parents about letting you go to events and stuff like that? Were they on board?
I was very lucky. My mum was always super supportive of my pro gaming aspirations, and let me say, after ungodly hours, neglect a copious amount of schoolwork just to undertake that journey.
My parents. It was like around the time when chat room pedophiles were a really big deal, and I was like, I'm going to go to Birmingham and meet a ton of strangers, and she was just like, no way. A few weeks ago at IEM Pyeongchang, Scarlet of Team Esport took down SOS, one of the most legendary StarCraft players of all time, in a stunning 3-1 finish in a grand final. Now, dude, this is huge, not only because Scarlet is a woman, you know, confirmed, like, also because she is a Caucasian person winning in South Korea.
Huge.
That's huge. This is the second time in history this has happened. I mean, that is nuts. She's still like, this is the equivalent of this is like walking into Mordor, wearing the ring, and dropping a bag of shit on Sauron's door. That is, you just don't, dude. You just don't do that.
Scarlett does that.
Scarlett does that. She did, in fact, do that, dude. I mean, did you watch the matches? How was it for you?
No, but I was keeping up to date with pretty much everything across social media, and like, I love how much he's stressed. This is a massive upset for a non-Korean player to win because they refer to anyone that plays StarCraft that isn't Korean as a foreigner. I mean, like, that's how serious it gets with that like national pride of that is Korea's game.
Yeah, it's their racket, man. It's like table tennis to the Chinese, or darts to the drunk. It's just their thing. It's what they do. Scarlett, though, huge news. Again, she's like 24 now, and she's won like $250,000 playing StarCraft 2. That's pretty cool. Tell that to your mum and dad. That'll help win them over. But it does help that Scarlett is like a god. She's so good at this game. In other ladies of esports news, Gregory has been signed to the Shanghai Dragons. It's kind of old news, but it's just really important to cover because, again, the Overwatch League has been plagued with issues of, although it's such an inclusive community and an inclusive game, it seemed like there's been criticisms of the league and the broadcast being a little bit exclusive, and that's completely fair, completely understood. But right now, we got a female player signed to the league. This is massive.
Yeah, and I'm a Shanghai Dragons fan. I bought that skin when they came out, and unfortunately they haven't been doing too great, but who knows, maybe with this new edition, they might be able to stop selling some donuts and start getting some victories on the board.
That would be huge, though. Imagine the very first win the Shanghai Dragons get is like with Gregory at the helm. Like, that would be huge. That'd be so great for it. I mean, Gregory, for context, she's a very, very famous Zarya player, like insanely skilled. She was first discovered a few years ago when she was accused of cheating by some guys online. I mean, like, we're talking death threats. Right? Oh, it's a compliment to us, but they really took it far. She was in a competition with them and she beat them. So then they were like, okay, death threats. They were completely calling her out on social media, like a torrent of sexual harassment and abuse later, like really, really bad online attacks. Eventually, she proved herself. She showed her hands, and people were like, okay, she's the real deal. This is a big deal. She's incredible. And now she's found her way onto an Overwatch League team. That is bitchin'. I just hope she doesn't put too much pressure on herself, because let's face it, that's a ton of pressure. I think we are going to get to see her play tomorrow when the league starts up for the Shanghai Dragons. I could be wrong, but that's not the first time, let's face it.
Yeah, really excited for those games. Shanghai Dragons, they need that boost. And, with comes signing the first female player to Overwatch League, you get a lot of support from a lot of different people. So hopefully that's not too much pressure for the team as a whole. And let's see if they can then use that as momentum to get themselves that first W.
Well, they picked up 2 other Korean players, which is cool because, let's face it.
Always a boon.
It's always a boon, dude. They're the premier player. It's good pedigree for esports talent. But what are they going to speak in game? Chinese? Korean?
I mean, in the past, we always see people, like, in League of Legends, people say they just communicate in pings. That's all they do. Right. They're like, missing, going here, retreat, right? But Overwatch doesn't have that, so I'm guessing some form of Chinese-Korean hybrid?
Well, I figured, like, most high-level Overwatch players speak a little bit of Korean anyway, because all they want to do is play on Korean servers where the best players are. So you kind of learn 4 or 5 key phrases, you run with those, and you see how you go. I'd be really interested to hear what's being said in the locker room and what the coaches are having to communicate with now, because that's a higher level of communication, more complicated words being used. What are they going to do? They've got bloody dictionaries out, the thesauruses, the Korean and Chinese translation. No idea. But that's pretty cool, yeah. Good news for Overwatch League. Huge news for female gamers, because, like, in what other world or sport, aside from, like, poker, can men and women play on the same playing field and it's completely even, and it's literally just a question of how good you are at something, as opposed to, like, what who's got the denser bones, or the wider hips, or the bigger feet. What? I don't know. I'm not a bloody scientist.
Beard.
Or the bushier beard. Thanks, Max. Tomorrow, the second stage of the Overwatch League begins. Max, what have you thought so far?
I've been loving it. It's been a great journey and a real big risk for Blizzard to kind of undertake this massive adventure and get all these people on board. So it's so rewarding to see it pay off, because there were doubters pretty much left, right, and center to whether or not this would be a success. And I think it's safe to say it has been a success.
I bet there's a couple of dudes at Blizzard that were like literally just freaking out at the possibility that this couldn't work.
Jobs on the line.
Yeah, 100%. The neck was on the block the whole time in this Overwatch League, but it seems to be going great so far. Speaking of great, if you're a London Spitfire fan, things are going great right now. They won the Stage 1 playoffs. It was a bloody treat. Stage 2 starts tomorrow, as does the Call of Duty World League Global Pro League Stage 2, Stage 1, Division A, Week 3. Cool. That starts tomorrow as well, and you should definitely watch that. As Australian team Mind Freak, the ones we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, they're going to be on that one, and it's well worth checking that out as well. You'll be at work, though.
Yeah.
Sorry, dude.
What are you going to do?
To watch the VODs, man. Deep into the night. All 12 hours of that stuff. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and check out all of these other videos. Or maybe they're up here. Or maybe they're over there. And we'll see you in this room again with a desk in a slightly different location. Thank you, Max.
Hadouken!